Just when I felt like studying Christian history could not get any more weird or confusing, I learned about Jesus using magical wands. Oddly enough, we have no depictions of Jesus before the 3rd century. However, the very earliest we do have clearly portray Jesus using a wand when performing miracles. On the doors of Santa Sabina, he uses a wand to change water to wine, multiply the bread and fish, and raise Lazarus. The Apostle Peter is also depicted in ancient art with a wand. This should not be so surprising considering how Christianity's early development is ripe with magical performances. We should take into consideration just how much early Judaism and Christianity were influenced by successful empires such as Egypt, who carried an ark into battle, which housed their god and holy relics. Hell being a fiery torment, and of course Egypt's obsession with magicians and magical wands. You can go and see these arks and wands in museums today. This is why we have early tales such as Moses, who was an Egyptian leader, tapping on stones with a wand to produce water, or splitting the Red Sea by pointing it into the air. The Bible expresses how it is a wand that will produce these magical feats. Moses also turns his wand, or staff if you wish, into a snake in a battle of wizardry with Egypt's magicians. So it is of no wonder that the earliest depictions of Jesus included the use of such a magical tool. Christian catacombs and sarcophagi have often been neglected as means for studying early Christianity, but they are much less vulnerable to being revised or altered to conform to changing theologies, whereas written materials can be copied and edited. The early depictions of a wand-wielding Jesus also seem to be very consistent with outside sources or books that were later rejected from biblical canon. The Acts of Peter describe contests of magic between Peter and Simon the Magus. Both within catacomb art and sarcophagi, Peter can be seen striking a rock wall to produce water, much like his predecessor Moses. According to the Acts of Peter, Peter often found himself in magician showdowns. In his own bout of wizardry, he defeated his nemesis by making a dog talk and resurrecting a smoked fish. Peter's unique magical powers were most likely the early church's attempt to endow him as being the one who Jesus passes his powers and authority to. After Jesus, the church required a new authority to continue the movement, and Peter became the head. Fabricating these kinds of magical stories around a famous leader was the primary formula for attracting followers at that time in human history. Nobody would follow a man without any stories of great magical powers, such as Jesus, Peter, and the other apostles. Whether you wish to describe Jesus as a wand-wielding magician or not, the archaeology does bear witness to how important such magical stories were to the early church. Art and Bibles were used to express these magical beliefs that may have helped people cope with the hardships of reality by escaping into fable, much like what TV or a big blockbuster movie does for us today. Today, we will find much less of these reported magical stories outside of the movies or a few oddly eccentric churches that even most Christians are embarrassed by. If Bibles were being written today, we could be certain that the magical stories written into ancient text would no longer be valuable or conducive to generating followers. The Bibles of today would be that of scientific exploration, which is truly improving lives in a more powerful and direct way than magical fables or god-men ever have or could. Most of us would simply giggle if we saw somebody being serious with a magical wand. I do not believe we should ever consider feeling otherwise, no matter how far you turn back the clock on time or history. Stay strong and wise, my friends.
I don't believe in masquerades. I don't believe that you're okay. I don't believe that God will save